Friday afternoon, May 15th, 2026, a press release went live on the OpenAI blog. Most financial advisors in America didn't see it that day. The ones who did probably didn't fully process what just happened, because what happened was this. 12,000 banks, brokerages, and credit card companies now connected directly to ChatGPT through Plaid. Portfolio analysis, scenario modeling, tax estimates, subscription audits, everything an advisor charges for inside the chat window for $20 a month. Today, I'm going to show you what last Friday actually changed about financial advisor marketing and the one asset that replaces cold calls in this new world we all live in. Let me tell you about the full picture. OpenAI's own number, 200 million people already ask ChatGPT about their money every month. That was before they could connect their accounts. As of last Friday, they can. 12,000 institutions, Schwab, Fidelity, Chase, Robinhood, American Express, Capital One, all wired in through Plaid. The same infrastructure that already sits behind Venmo and most major fintech apps. The dashboard shows portfolio performance, spending patterns, subscriptions, upcoming payments. The chatbot answers questions like, build me a plan to buy a house in 5 years, or what's the tax impact of selling this position? Intuit integration is coming next, which adds live tax expert sessions inside the chat. That same week, a separate industry study landed. 69% of financial advisors now cite AI as their top professional concern. 3 years ago, that number was 29%, a 40-point jump in 3 years, the fastest sentiment shift the advisor industry has measured on any threat in modern memory. Now, here's the part most advisors haven't connected yet. The OpenAI launch and the industry study didn't just happen in the same week by coincidence. They're the same news at two different elevations. The product is what's happening to the market. The study is what's happening inside advisors' heads. Both arrived the same week because the inflection point is the same week. So what does this mean for you? If you're an independent advisor in 2026, a CFP, an RIA, a fee-only planner, here's what last Friday quietly changed. Your best clients are about to do something they've never been able to do before. They're going to open ChatGPT on a Saturday morning, connect their Schwab and Fidelity accounts through Plaid, and get a full portfolio analysis with no advisor in the room. They're going to compare what ChatGPT tells them to what you told them at the last quarterly review. And you won't know that conversation happened. You won't be there to add context, to push back, to coach. You'll find out about it 3 months later when they ask why your recommendation was different from the chatbots. What's happening here has a name. I call it the Plaid moment. The quiet Saturday morning when your client gets a second opinion they didn't tell you they were getting, from a tool that can read their entire financial life in 2 minutes. I want to tell you about an advisor I'll call David. Fee-only RIA, 18 years in practice, Pacific Northwest, manages an $80 million book, mostly tech executives and physicians, and he was doing everything right by the old playbook. Strong quarterly reviews from his clients, great referrals, and then last fall, one of his best clients emailed him asking why his Roth conversion recommendation was different from what ChatGPT had told her over the weekend. She'd already run the numbers. Keep that in mind. I want to share a framework with you. I call it the fiduciary asset. The advisors who will be left standing in 3 years aren't the ones with better software. They're the ones whose value is visible to a prospect before that prospect ever connects an account to ChatGPT. The fiduciary asset is the published piece of authority that does that work. And there are 3 layers. The first layer is your philosophy, not your firm's mission statement, your actual perspective on money, risk, time, and human behavior. The thing only you would say in the way only you would say it. ChatGPT doesn't have a philosophy. It has a probability distribution over training data. Those aren't the same thing. The second layer is your methodology, not a generic financial planning process, your specific named approach to the work, the way you handle behavioral coaching during volatility, the way you sequence retirement decumulation, the way you integrate estate planning with charitable giving, named, structured, recognizable as yours. ChatGPT can describe generic methodologies. It can't be one. The third layer is your judgment library, the case patterns, the life stage navigation, the behavioral coaching moments, the divorce, the inheritance, the parent's nursing home decision, the cancer diagnosis that changes a retirement timeline overnight, the 50 years of compounding judgment that lives inside an experienced advisor's head and nowhere else. ChatGPT cannot see that landscape. It cannot remember the last 6 conversations with a client across 4 years of life events. It cannot be that fiduciary, legally, structurally, in fact. David's philosophy existed. His methodology existed. His judgment library existed. None of them were visible to a prospect before the first call. Think of it like the difference between a chef and a recipe app. The recipe app gives you the steps. The chef gives you the judgment about when the steps don't apply. The fiduciary asset is how a prospect knows which one they're hiring before they show up to the table. So when your client opens ChatGPT on a Saturday morning, what is it that they see about you that makes them close the chat and call you instead? Here's the simplest way to think about all of this. ChatGPT can read your client's accounts. It cannot be their advisor. A book is how your prospect knows the difference before they ever pick up the phone. The value of fiduciary advice didn't shrink last Friday. The visible part of it did. So what happened to David? After the Roth conversion email, he sat with it for a week. He could keep doing what he'd always done and watch the slow drift accelerate, or he could change the structure of how a prospect found him. He came to us. We didn't tell him to add more technology to his practice. We told him to publish his philosophy, his methodology, the judgment library that had taken 18 years to build, in book form, visible, citable, available to a prospect 6 months before they ever booked a discovery call. He pushed back at first and said, advisors don't write books. Said his clients wouldn't read them. We told him his clients weren't the audience. The audience was every prospect his clients would mention him to over the next decade. 6 months later, two things have changed. David hadn't lost a client to a robo-advisor or an AI tool since the book launched. And his pipeline has been running on inbound. Discovery calls are opening with, hey, I read your chapter on behavioral coaching during volatility. Or I want to talk about the multi-decade case study in chapter 7. His average new client moved from 800,000 to 4.2 million in AUM. Same David, same fiduciary philosophy. The work that used to happen in the first 6 discovery calls now happened before the call even got booked. So what actually works for advisor marketing in 2026? Here's what I've seen with the advisors who are growing in the post-plaid market. They're not racing ChatGPT on analysis. They've stopped trying to. The analysis race is already lost. OpenAI spent over $100 billion to win it, and as of last Friday, they did. What the surviving advisors are doing instead is moving perpendicular to the AI axis, toward fiduciary judgment, toward behavioral coaching, toward the cross-life relationship a chatbot structurally cannot have. And here's the part most advisors are going to get backwards. They're going to respond to last Friday by adding more tech to their practice. Better dashboards, sharper scenario modeling, faster reporting tools. That's backward. Not wrong, backwards. The advisor's edge isn't on the axis ChatGPT competes on. Adding more tech to your practice is doing the easy step before the hard one. The hard step is publishing the authority asset that shows what only a human fiduciary can be. The asset is what makes every other piece of the practice, the referrals, the discovery calls, the AUM conversations, the subscription pricing, actually land. 47% of senior buyers have already awarded business to someone based on what that person published, not what they pitched, not what they cold called, what they published. For advisors, the asset that does that is a book. So the question you're probably sitting with right now is, okay, what does this fiduciary asset actually look like? How does an advisor with a full practice find the time to build a book that does the work of replacing cold outreach? Because here's what I've learned. The advisors who get this right aren't the ones who took 2 years off to write. They're the ones who used a structured process to extract what was already in their head, their philosophy, their methodology, and the judgment library they built across thousands of client conversations, and turn it into a published asset that their prospects could find before they ever connected an account to ChatGPT. That's exactly what the next video walks through, the 90-day process we use to build that asset without losing months of practice, time, and without handing it off to AI. Watch it next. That's the one.